the morning of August 11, a demolition exercise began in Cooper's Pen in Trelawney, northern Trelawney. And it has dominated the news cycles, and it has now morphed into a political dogfight between the Jamaica Labour Party and the People's National Party. And when I say a dogfight, it is a real dogfight. I had a little time to spend a little bit more attention to what was happening on radio and online. And you were seeing, or you would be seeing, the PNP response, the JLP response, the posts, and it has become, frankly, a major political tussle. And whenever you have that, then there are certain casualties. Facts, the truth, become casualties when an issue becomes an intensely fought political. And that's where we are, where Cooper's Pen is concerned this morning. I want to take a little different tack approach. One, land, access to land and ownership of land in Jamaica cannot be seen in the context of what happened 2 weeks ago, or 2 years ago, or 20 years ago. Yeah. The access and ownership to land and the emotive reality of squatting goes back more than 150 years. The end of slavery, emancipation in 1838. This has been a vexed issue that, frankly, successive governments, administrations in Jamaica have not taken on board in an expansive way as they should have. At the end of emancipation and apprenticeship in 1838, what did we have? What was bequeathed, left to the descendants of the enslaved? You know what was? Frankly, nothing. You learn from your economics the factors of production: land, labor, and capital. Land, labor, and capital. Now in the 21st century, we can add to that intellectual capacity, knowledge. That is now a factor of production. But in 1838, while those colonial rulers saw it fit to compensate financially the enslavers those people who enslaved our foreparents and robbed them of the proceeds of their factor of production, which is labor, robbed them, paid them nothing for the toil, the hours, the years they spent producing for them so that they could sell their sugar in London and earn and save for their families what did our godparents, grandparents, and great-great-great-grandparents got. They got some saltfish, which today give us the high blood pressure and the sugar, the diabetes, while their children, their grandchildren got what? Land and seeds that our parents were forced to provide for free. And at the end of emancipation, the enslavers were given 20 million pounds because our foreparents were seen as chattel, property that they had lost. Therefore, they were compensated. While we were told, oh, you are free to go now. But we weren't given anything. It was left to the goodwill of the churches. Like the Moravian church out in St. Elizabeth, who saw the need for the north and needed land, and they created the free villages, while the enslavers continued on crown lands. Yes. But what we have today, the figure varies. Some say 700,000 informal settlers or settlers, or 1 million. And we have not, as a country, after 64 years, come to terms with that historical wrong that was bequeathed to our foreparents. And today, we struggle to afford access to land and to property, which is a vital factor of production to produce income and generate generational wealth. Many of us have not recovered from that start. And here, Crawford's presentation, majoring in the minor. Put up this summit, please. From cane fields to Cooper's pen. He writes, the almost exclusive focus on Cooper's pen as an independent occurrence, unfortunately, puts the nation in danger of majoring in the minor. Hidden in political blame game, jokes and ridicule is a more consequential question. This question is not simply whether the approximately 600 occupants of Cooper's pen possessed legal title, but instead how, almost 2 centuries after emancipation, approximately 700,000 Jamaicans are still considered squatters, and further, why the vast majority of the descendants of Afro-Jamaicans remain without legal title to land to this very day. Cooper's pen, therefore, represents less than 0.1% of a much larger national land access problem, writes Damion Crawford. He continues, my argument is straightforward. Afro-Jamaican landlessness is not simply the product of poverty, lawlessness, or individual failure. It has historical roots in a colonial system in which control over land was used to maintain control over labor. Let me tell you something. Crawford analysis is logical, grounded in facts, and the best analysis I've heard coming from a member of the People's National Party since this issue of Cooper's pen blew up 2 weeks ago. The various statements coming from them have been all over the place, ill-informed, misleading, and reflects what I've now dubbed for the last several years, how lazy, intellectually lazy, the People's National Party has become. So I ask, where is Crawford and this level of analysis and thinking in the output of the People's National Party? Where is he? Why is this analysis? He goes on to trace and to put forward solid ideas as to how to fix this problem and to stop play politics, narrow, short-term politics with it, if we are dealing with this historical wrong that was perpetrated on the vast majority of Jamaicans more than 160 years ago, that we have not recovered from. Where is he? And then the PNP continues to put out things that are embarrassing. I heard the story about coming from their spokesman cousins about caveat, not knowing that the caveat was lifted more than 10 years ago. Come on, man. Come on. My hands were... I therefore beseech my colleagues, some of whom may be encountering parts of this history for the first time, let us not perpetuate the oppression through continued inaccessibility to land ownership. If we are serious about reparatory justice, let us make access to Crown land the starting point, a start entirely within our control. And that's where I think we, the stakeholders, media, business, the government, because the government will have to lead on this. How do we, as part of the reparatory justice movement that is underway, we have made several stops and starts, initiatives to deal with the question of housing, shelter. But at the base of the problem is access to land. Access to land. And I think nothing less than a government recognition that we have to right that historical wrong 160 odd years ago. That's the framework. That this is not about giving away land. This is about righting a wrong that occurred in 1838 by the British colonial power that we have not addressed. You know, I saw a piece done by Dr. Nadine Spence on this issue. It's a little long, but I'm going to share it with you. Yeah? Because what Dr. Spence brought to the debate on Cooper's pen and the vexed issue of land is a personalized family experience. That is the experience of so many Jamaicans today, where this question of land, yeah, in the aftermath of slavery is concerned. Do you have that queued up for me? Go.
Before we reduce Cooper's pen to squatters on private land, we need to ask a deeper Jamaican question. Why do so many of our people have such an insecure relationship with land? Now, I come to this question from a very deeply personal place. From a community called Kilmarnock, which is a free village owned by the Moravians and with a plantation nearby, where after emancipation, the former slave moved into what was known as the Kilmarnock Woods and got land through the Moravians when they became church members. It's not a place where people have titles. It's not a place where people know any of the modern legal requirements of land ownership. That's not a part of the story, and Kilmarnock is not unique. There are so many other places like Kilmarnock in rural Jamaica where the process of emancipation and decolonization and the establishment of an independent Jamaica did not lead to the newly free citizens of this new nation learning how to own land or any process that helped them to own land. They wouldn't have had the money to do so. We come from enslaved people, those of us who are black, the most of us, the majority of the country, the people who live in the countryside all across Jamaica on land that have no title. There needs to be an established process to land ownership. Cooper's pen didn't happen just like that. It's not an anomaly. It's not a strange thing. Cooper's pen happens all the time across Jamaica. So we need to move past this idea that these people were just squatting on private land. That's not the only question. That's not the only issue here. And we need to also stop this foolishness about which party was right and which was wrong. That doesn't help. The blame game doesn't help the scores of Jamaicans, the hundreds and thousands of Jamaicans who are living on land and do not know how to legally register or get their land to belong to them, who have no information. You know how much people across Jamaica are selling land with a receipt between them and them neighbors, somebody them know. That happens in my family. You know, people just get a receipt from somebody. And you know, there's so many matters that I'm intervening. I have to say, one of the things that I'm doing right now in my community of Kilmarnock is working with the NLA, and thank God the Minister Robert Montague responded to my urgings to do some work in Kilmarnock, because my father is 97 years old, bought his land some 60 years ago and never had a title. He had a receipt, and for most of the people in my community, that's the reality. And so I had to write to the minister and ask, can you help? And I think more Jamaicans need to do that. But as well, I'm asking the government to ensure that the National Land Agency does more work to educate people about land ownership and to also move the NLA out of Kingston. I think most of the problem about land ownership in Jamaica is not necessarily about how land is navigated in Kingston, St. Andrew and St. Catherine. It's the deeper rural parts of Jamaica where people moved from plantation to building their little house here and there, and people are farming on different lots of land. That's where a lot of the issues are. That's where the most contentious issues are. And something needs to be done about it, but we have to confront the reality that we have emerged out of and recognize that the problem of land in Jamaica is not a current issue, it's a systematic issue, and that it responds that is systematic and that acknowledges the problem that is located in our history, that seeks to rectify issues that were rectified by emancipation and independence. It's a lot. It's a lot. But please refrain from the conversation about which party is to blame. It's not helping. It's really a poorly litigated argument. Just stop it. You just make it look dunce. That's not the solution that's going to help us. What would help is if we start to look at communities around us where people are informally settling land and where they might need help to regularize. And if you can lend assistance, if you can point the state in their direction to assist, let's do that. But also remember that we have a lot of those situations in Jamaica that we need to fix. And what we need is an intelligent, systematic response that looks at our reality and says, this is the solution.
Dr. Nadine Spence of the University of the West Indies, Mona. Yes, I think we're at that place now, and we can turn Cooper's pen and the trauma that was visited upon those people 2 weeks ago, we can turn it into a positive. We can. But do we have the courage? Do we have the will? Minister Montague has been given portfolio responsibility for the issue of titling and settlements. But I suggest we need to hear from our Prime Minister, from our national leaders, that the framework for this must be anchored in that effort of reparatory justice for the historical wrong of our forefathers. After being exploited for hundreds of years, their labor, they were given nothing, while the enslavers were given monetary compensation. We got nothing. So government should not hesitate about fixing that historical wrong. Time for the break. After the break, your calls.